You gotta feel really bad for John Krasinski. I mean, besides the fact that he's handsome as hell and has the charisma of a leading man, he's really had a tough time escaping the shadow of Jim Halpert over the years, the quintessential nice guy. Because his entire filmography past that point has been one long journey to become an action hero or a director, and to be quite honest, he never really managed to break out from there. But today he comes with something a little bit different. After working with Michael Bay on 13 Hours 2 years ago, Bay gave him a little bit of money to make his very own little horror film. And I have to admit, I was pretty well impressed with Krasinski's own efforts. He even brought his wife along and some teenagers that managed to create a very evocative horror suspense thriller. So, our film takes place in mid-apocalypse, where a race of indestructible creatures have pretty much eradicated most people and most creatures around. Their whole deal is they hear you, you're dead within seconds. But they can't see, smell, or have any other useful senses besides almost supersonic hearing. So in order to survive this apocalypse, you have the Abbots, led by the patriarch, played by John Krasinski. And since the whole family has a deaf daughter, played by Millicent Simmons, who you may remember from Wonderstruck last year, everybody knows sign language in the entire family, so they're all able to communicate pretty effectively without ever having to utter a single word. But that's not the only thing they have to take care of. They have to make sure that they are never once uttering a single sound. So not even a cup dropping in a small confined space could actually mean the difference between life and death. And adding to this drama is the fact that Emily Blunt is preggers. You may be asking yourself, what the hell is the logic in having and trying to have a baby, i.e., one of the loudest creatures alive, and being brought into this world with scary monsters that can hear sound from miles away? But besides that weak little plot hole, the rest of the film does a very, very good job at suckering you in and scaring the living piss out of you by slowly churning your stomach into knots as you fear for this family. And what's really effective is that you get to know all four members of the family mostly through body language and sign language alone. I mean, honestly, there are probably only 20 lines of spoken dialogue in this entire film, and most of the time you're just seeing everybody use sign language in order to communicate. And it's really effective because each character has a slightly different style in sign language that also communicates their own personality. The mother uses a little bit more flowery language. The father uses much more curt survivalist tactics. And the teenager, well, she's always been deaf her whole life, so she is a pro at it, and she's able to be very communicative in that regard. But in every other aspect, it's a really effective way in crafting a film in order to rely primarily on visuals and sounds alone to tell its story. Because for long stretches of time, the film is very eerily quiet. So when a simple lamp just drops into the distance, it's almost like a sonic boom just went off into the theater. And it's incredibly effective at heightening your senses as you basically start to fear for each of these characters as they're put through the ringer in various different ways. And they also are very clever because none of these characters are quite dumb. Besides the whole, getting pregnant thing, at the very least they've come up with multiple backup plans in order to get Emily Blunt's character ready for the big day. Speaking of which, Blunt is phenomenal here. She has to portray a giving birth scene that is very harrowing on the account that she has to keep quiet while she's giving birth, all on her own. And for mothers out there, they know that that's practically impossible. And you see the pain and anguish on her face as she's just trying to control herself, as she hopes against hope that those monsters don't nab her and do dreadful things to her, i.e. tearing her to ribbons. And that's another cool aspect of the film. They slowly reveal the monsters the way old 1980s horror used to reveal their monsters, showing you a body part here, a limb or a claw there, until you finally get the full big reveal much later in the film, when we are already well invested into our characters and we are very well aware of what the threat they pose. And it's a really clever design, I have to admit that. Because honestly, everything else about the film is really top notch. Even when the score slowly creeps in, it's very effective. The use of sound mixing and creating different sounds is very, very unique in a way that I haven't seen since Dunkirk last year. And I gotta give a lot of props to a film that utilizes every visual and sound trick in the book. Not since Mad Max Fury Road have I seen a film go to that length in order to tell its story. And that's important because filmmaking is a medium that has to rely on sight and sound. And it's amazing when you can see someone limit themselves in the dialogue department to take full advantage of that in order to tell a narrative and to tell it effectively. I did remember with Millicent Simmons' last film, Wonderstruck, I was not very much impressed with the film, and I actually remember writing that I wish a filmmaker could make a silent film and entirely make it much more effective than what we actually got, because there were a lot of half measures there. A Quiet Place is exactly the kind of film that I was looking for. And if by the box office receipts are anything to go by, I think a lot of people are starting to realize that as well. So I'm going to give this a nice 4 out of 5 stars. You got to check this one out in the theaters. And my name is Christopher Jaramillo, and I'll see you at the lobby.